Welcome everyone to the training webinar series Ifinity Encompass Advanced Material Orders presentation. Thank you for joining us today. We welcome your questions throughout the presentation, and you can enter them by clicking on the Q&A icon on the top of your screen. My name is Linda Park, and it is my pleasure to be with you today to introduce Tina Sanchez. Tina has more than 10 years of healthcare experience and over 6 years at Ifinity. She's an expert in Ifinity Encompass and holds a master's degree in healthcare management. She was born and raised in Savannah, Georgia, and enjoys spending time with her family and friends. Tina loves to read and travel in her spare time, and she is known for her enthusiasm for helping others. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you everyone for joining our training webinar on advanced material orders today. So I'm going to go ahead and bring over my Encompass screen. And Linda, are you good to go with seeing that?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Great. All right, so we're going to talk about, material orders today. That's one thing, advanced transactions that could happen, like remakes. You may be doing returns in this system. We also have, the copy functionality in here. And we also are going to talk about, how do you add patient credits? I mean, how do you remove a patient credit if it's been added to the patient's account in error? Or, how do we deal with patient balances, in the system? So first thing I'm going to point out there, I'm going to be doing a couple of remake scenarios, talking about credits today. So a couple of things I wanted to point out over in the administration side. So one thing I'm going to point out, and I'll go over to administration in just a second, is there is a miscellaneous option over in administration that says remove patient credit. I'm going to go over that workflow today, but remove patient credit, you want that activated, especially if you are trying to remove a patient's credit off the account. Maybe it's there in error, somebody added it, maybe it came over from your old system when you did a conversion, and that credit is just hanging out on the patient's account. Um, I'm going to show you how to get rid of that today, but we want to have the remove patient credit option over in administration activated. Also, another one I'm going to talk about activating is the remake fee. And you're going to see why I want you to activate the remake fee. That will come into play when you're doing like a non-adapt progressive, or even if the patient changes their mind and the pricing of that new order compared to the old order changes, and we don't want to refund money or credit money back to the patient. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to administration just to show you where those options are. And then I'm going to go up to products and services and go to other items setup. And then I'm going to go to my miscellaneous fees. And you guys on the phone, you may already have these set up. But for anybody that does not have them set up and or does not know where they are, we would come here to miscellaneous fees setup, and you have a ton of miscellaneous fees that you can activate in here. If you don't see something that you're like, I need it as a miscellaneous fee, you can always take any of these and change the name of these. And the name that you see here will be reflected in your order, are in your invoice. If you print out something for the patient, that'll be reflected on their receipt as well. The miscellaneous fee description, you will never be able to change that verbiage there. But like I said, this is going to be reflected on anything that you're looking at when it comes to the invoice. So you can always change those. Now, I talked about remove patient credit. I talked about remake fee. So you can see already I have my remake fee here. You can see it's named custom remake fee, but I took out the word custom here. Or you can use this remade order. That is another option that's in here as well, if I wanted to use that. And when I go over the non-adapt progressive example today, you'll see when I will use, either the remade order option or the remake fee, whichever one is your preference. So you can see I changed it. Now also I'm going to go to the next page, and here's my remove patient credit that I'm going to use, to show you how do I easily remove a credit from a patient's account without it affecting like my daily closing or affecting my reports. Making it look like I refunded money back to the patient. If I'm trying to remove a patient credit and I'm not actually giving money back to the patient, then of course I don't want that to be reflected on my daily closing for that day. So I'm going to show you how to easily remove it without it affecting your daily closing. So those are the three, the couple of things that I wanted to show you here in administration to have those activated. And you'll see, like I said, when we go to the examples, you'll see why do I have those activated and what am I using them for. All right, so now I'm going to click on my Encompass logo, go back to the front. All right, so first of all, let's talk about adding a patient credit. So sometimes in your office, you may be like, okay, well, yeah, the patient's paying me money. I want to add that credit in. That's really the only time you should be adding a credit, because keep in mind, adding a credit to a patient's account will affect your daily closing. So it's going to indicate that, okay, I took money, from the patient on the day that I added it. So I'm going to go and look up my patient. So I'm going to look up my Sierra patient. And then I'm going to go to her. Now, if I want to add a credit, you can see right here, I don't have any types of credits here. My patient doesn't have any types of balances. So I'm just going to simply click on material orders here on the left. And then you can see my credit area up here where I can easily go and add a credit. So I can click on add credit. It's going to ask me, how is this patient paying the money? And this is why it affects your daily closing, because you're telling the system, this patient paid me money on the business day that I am on. So, and make sure, your daily closing is updated when you're doing this, because whatever day your daily closing is on, this money is going to be reflected, on that day. So if I said, okay, well, she paid $50, on her Visa card, because maybe, you're collecting a copay or whatever before, or their responsibility before you actually invoice something, then you can easily add the money in here. So you have that accounted for. Because what could happen is that you may be collecting the money today, but you're like, okay, I don't have time to get the invoice in quite yet. Maybe it's tomorrow before you get it in. At least the money is accounted for here on the current business day. And then when you put that invoice in, you can backdate the service date. You can never backdate a payment date. So keep that in mind. If the patient is, giving you any money and you don't have that time to, invoice their exam or their glasses or contacts at the time that they're, in there, put the money in here, have that documented, so you can always take this money and apply it to that invoice once you get it in. All right, so I'm going to click on OK here, and it does populate a receipt here that I can give to my patient. So we can see my $50. Now, let's go look at our daily closing. So I have more in here. So what if I wanted to say, oh, well, I want to look at a list, right? I can see that there's $150 here. Our Visa is how she paid. I can see $459.95 total here, but I'm like, wait, what does that include? I can always go up to store operations, change payments if I want to see the list of what happened. So here is my $50. Where it's at $50 right here for Sierra Sanchez that I just posted in. If you notice, there's no order number here because it was put in as a miscellaneous payment. When you add in a credit, it does put it in as a miscellaneous. It is not tied to any order because you didn't apply the payment yet. So you can see how that affects your daily closing. Anytime you add in a credit, it is going to appear on your daily closing. Now, if I want to hop back to that patient When I'm on this screen, I can simply click on the patient's name here, and it'll hop me back over to that patient's account. So I can see my $50 here. So that's adding a credit. Now I'm going to go back to the material orders. There's another way that you can actually plug in a payment that will appear as a credit as well. So when I'm on this material order screen, I can go to this make payment button. And then you can see I have options up here. Either I have invoiced orders, and you can see I have no invoiced orders for this patient, so I don't need to apply any payments for an invoiced order. I have patient insurance balance, so if you have any patients that have that insurance balance, if that insurance balance was listed here, I can easily apply that credit here as well. I also have this miscellaneous section. So in the miscellaneous area, when you do make payment, you have options here to tell the system, okay, why am I documenting this miscellaneous payment? So I'll click on the drop down. It could be like an old system balance. It could be, they're paying for an NSF check. It could be a collection payment. It could be just a patient payment. So kind of like what I just did, it was a patient payment that I added into the credit. Same thing here. If I'm like, okay, let me select patient payment and say they paid, Visa and they paid 50, and I'm going to make payment. It's going to populate a receipt for a patient, and then you can see how it flowed over here to my credit. So now, if you do it within add credit, if you do it within make payment and you do patient payment, it is going to show in the credit area, whichever way you decide to do it. And then I can look at my details here and kind of see what happened. If this is patient credit, is it a credit from the family? Maybe Sierra has family members linked to her and they have credits on their account, you would be able to see that here. Also, if you select credit history here, it'll give you a list of when were these credits added. And you can see this one, both of them's on 10/8, but if it occurs on different days, then you'll see those options, not options, but you'll see those things, those transactions listed here as to when those credits were added, to that patient's account. All right, so that's adding a credit. So now let's talk about removing a credit. And I'm actually going to jump to a different patient. So I'm going to go up to patients and search for my patient. And same thing, I'm going to go to Summer. And we can see Summer has a credit here. Now, what if that credit was there in error? So let's go ahead and go to material orders, and you guys probably saw this button when we were just in this screen. There's this refund credit button. So you absolutely can, refund a credit to a patient, but keep that in mind. Refund credit means I'm giving this money back to the patient. Um, when I select that. So I can definitely go in and say, oh yeah, we didn't need the $50 from them. We only needed 30. Then I can go to refund credit. You can see where it says refund amount, $50. That's the most I can refund because that's the credit that's on their account. I have cash as an option because that's how the patient paid. And you guys may have seen this before when you are like returning something in the system or anything like that. It gives you the option of how are you going to give the money back to the patient. The options you see here are based on how the patient paid. So our patient paid cash of $50. So that's why it has cash. If they had paid on their credit card, whether it be a MasterCard, Visa, Discover, American Express, if they had paid on one of those types of payments, that will be listed here. Now, mail by check is always going to be an option because if you're like, well, we actually don't have the cash, maybe this happened a few days back, and you're like, well, I don't have the cash just to hand back to the patient. We need to write them a check. Then I can easily just click on mail by check, tell the system, okay, well, I'm going to give them a check for $30 or $20, whatever it is. And then I'm going to click on refund. So then, it populates that refund receipt, and now you have $30 left. Now that is you only want to do that if you're actually going to refund the money back to the patient. Now, what if I have the scenario come up that, oh, wait, this credit got added to the wrong patient? Or when we converted from our other software, a credit came over, but that actually is not available as a credit for that patient any longer. Maybe it got used over in your old software, but it got converted like during the during that middle time when conversion was happening and, all that was going on. So we have a credit here of $30 that doesn't belong to that patient. We would not go and click on refund credit because then that's affecting our daily closing. That's telling the system we're giving money back to the patient. So that's why I took you to administration and said, okay, let's activate that remove patient credit because that is the way that you want to remove that credit. That is going to be best practice for removing a credit so it doesn't affect your daily closing and affect your financials that you're looking at, on that day. So what we want to do is create a miscellaneous order in the system to get rid of this credit. So I'm going to click on add miscellaneous order from this screen. So we would have come to the patient, went to material orders, and then did add miscellaneous order. So when I get to my fee slip here, I'm just going to go to my miscellaneous fees. That's where those fees were activated. They're under miscellaneous fees. So I'm going to click on miscellaneous fee. I'm going to click my drop down and I'm going to look, for my remove patient credit or whatever, fee I'm looking for. So in this example, I'm going to do remove patient credit and I'm going to add to order. Now you're going to notice it does add it as a $0 charge here. And you want it to be like that. Over in administration, I had the zero price checkbox checked off because this could be a different amount every time. I may want to remove $20 from this patient, but 15 from the other patient. So we want this to come over as zero so then we can tell the system, hey, this is how much we need to remove. So I'm going to click on the dollar amount here, and then I'm going to plug in my $30. And then I'm going to update price. And this is very important here. And you guys may have seen this. You guys that are on the call probably have seen this before. Do you want to save this price as the retail price for this item? So basically the system is saying, hey, you just put in $30. Do you want to save that $30 as this price? And going forward, the remove patient credit will be $30. So you probably be like, no, yeah, I don't want that to happen because next time it could be $10. So I'm going to always tell the system no here because I don't want $30 to be saved in administration. I want the admin side to stay at zero. So the next time I use this remove patient credit, I have the ability to then price it right here on the fly and, not have to go to administration, change it back to zero, come back over here. So always select no here if you don't want that price saved in administration. So I'm going to click on no, and then you can see my $30 here. I'm going to save an invoice, and then I'm just going to take this $30 credit and apply it. So this is basically zeroing out that credit. It's not affecting your daily closing because I didn't refund anything. I didn't collect anything. I'm just taking that available credit and applying it against this miscellaneous fee that remove patient credit. So then I'm going to save it. And then we can just close out of the receipt. We don't need to give the receipt to the patient if you're removing that credit that was there in here. See that listed as a transaction here, and it does say miscellaneous here. For that remove patient credit, I can click on this and actually let me go back to transactions. And if you look back and say, oh, what was that actually for? Um, I can open it here with my little caret, and you can see remove patient credit here in your transactions tab. So you can always go back and see, why did we do that? Why is that on here? All right, so that's our credit part of the system, adding credit, and how do you remove credits that were, placed there in error, or how do you refund a credit back to the patient? All right, so now we're going to jump over to remakes. So you guys probably know there is several reasons why remakes could be happening in the system. Non-adapt progressive, the patient changes their mind about something. They, left the office, they called you later or called you the next day and says, hey, I thought about, that you offered, talked about polarized yesterday, and I think I want to add that. That could happen. You could be doing warranty remakes. So we're going to go over a couple remake scenarios here in the system. So the first scenario we're going to look at is a patient with non-adapt progressive. So I'm going to look up my Sierra patient again because she's the patient that cannot adapt to her progressives. And then I'm going to go to material orders. I just want to take a look at the order that's in here. And it is right here. This is the one that was done on, well, 10/8 because I did it today, but it would probably be a few weeks back that this was done for you guys. And this order was delivered to the patient. They took the glasses home and they came back to the office and they're like, I cannot see with these glasses. I need something different. Maybe this was their first progressive they ever had, and they're like, I think I need to go back to single vision that I had. Or they could be going back, to a line bifocal, whatever be the case. We would do like a non-adapt remake here. So, first thing when you do any remakes where the prescription is being changed, always advise to make sure that you go over to the RX section and we check to see what prescriptions we have. Do we have, a single vision prescription here? Do we have a bifocal? What do we have? Or, it may be just changing things on the order. Even though we have a multifocal prescription, we may be going back to a bifocal versus a progressive lens. So, there's definitely different scenarios that could happen with non-adapt. So I always say, look here, make sure we have the right prescription. The doctor may have written, that patient a single vision and a multifocal when they came in, for their exam. I know that happened to me when I first went to progressives. The doctor's like, okay, we'll try you on the progressives, but I'm still going to write you a single vision prescription, just to and see how you do with the progressive. And I did fine, but he still wrote, both of those prescriptions. So I'll check here first, make sure I have prescription. Now I'm going to show you a pretty cool thing in here if you guys are not aware of it. When I go and do this remake, I am going to go back to single vision, but I don't have a single vision prescription in here. But you have the ability to actually convert that multifocal prescription to either a reading or a distant single vision right here in the software. And you may not have to do that because your doctor, may just write a new prescription. To go back to single vision. So you may not have to do that, but I want to show you that, neat little options here in the system. All right, so I'm going to go over here to material orders because this is the order I want to remake. And so I'm going to go to my actions drop down and I'm going to select remake. And then it's pretty cool. We can see all the info here at the top of the screen, what type of order is, what did the patient have. They had the progressive polycarbonate Verilux XR design technology in clear. So I'm going to select my remake reason here. So whatever the reason is that you guys are doing this remake, select the reason here. And I'm going to do non-adapt progressive. We do have that listed here. So you have that option to select. And then you can see everything is checked off here because was a complete eyeglass order. I have frame, right lens, left lens, extras. So now it asks me, okay, well, what are you doing with the frame? But we're not really doing anything with the frame, right? It's still going to be the same frame. We're just getting the lenses redid. But if you were actually doing a return job here, then I would tell the system, okay, what are we actually doing with that frame? Are we writing off the frame? Are we returning it to our inventory and we can, sell it again? Is it a stock transfer? You would make those options. But because I'm only getting the lenses remade and I don't really need to do anything special with the frame on this order, I am going to uncheck my frame. So it takes away that option to ask me, what am I doing with the frame? Because the same frame is going to be used on this order. It's just we're remaking the lenses. All right, and then I'm going to click on remake order here. Now it's going to take me to my summary page, my summary screen here. So keep in mind, we did non-adapt progressive. So we're going to be changing a couple of things here. We're going to be changing the prescription, maybe, because you may be like, oh, well, we're going to still keep the multifocal prescription, but we need to change our lenses because maybe they're going to bifocal. So you can definitely do that. But for my example, I'm saying the patient's going to go to single vision. So first thing I need to change is my RX. That is the recommendation. That's the workflow. Make sure you're changing the RX first, because once you change the RX, then the system says, okay, well, go and update your lenses because we know that you changed the RX. If you do it backwards, it's not going to work. So always, update the RX first if you need to. So I'm going to click on change here. It'll bring me to my list of RXs on this patient's account. And here's our cool little button here, convert RX. So that allows me to say, okay, well, actually, they're going to go back to single vision. I don't have that separate single vision prescription in here. I'm going to click on convert RX. And then it gives you the option to say, okay, I want to do a reading, or they need reading, or they need distance. So I'm going to select distance for this patient, and I'm going to use converted RX. Now, I'm going to cancel out of this for a second. Of course, if we saw the single vision prescription listed here, we're going to select that prescription. We're not going to use convert RX. So I'm going to click on convert again and use converted RX. And it tells me right here, changing your RX will require you to make new selections in the following areas. Lenses, do you wish to change the RX? So you have the opportunity to back out here. So we can back out for like, oh no, that's a mistake, didn't mean to do that, we can cancel. But if we're like, nope, yep, we're ready to go, we need to update the lenses now, I'm going to say yes, change RX. And you can see how the lenses have been removed from here. The frame's still here, the lab is still here, we just need to update the lenses. And then there's our new prescription here on the right-hand side. Now, if we made a mistake with the prescription, we absolutely can click on change here, go back to our list of RXs and update that RX if we had chosen the wrong one. All right, so I'm going to add my lenses, and I'm just going to go to single vision, and I'm just going to still keep with polycarbonate and clear like they had, because everything's remaining the same. It's just now we're going back to single vision. Okay, and then I'm going to add to order. And now we can see our pricing over here, $409.95 for our new order. So I'm going to continue to summary. Here's our summary page. We're reviewing everything. RX looks good. Lenses look good. And then I'm going to now continue to pricing, since everything looks good on the new order. And then it gives me this message here. There have been changes from the original order. Add the insurance and discounts on the pricing page that were applied on the original order. So keep that in mind when you are doing remakes, that there's a change in pricing. That it tells you here that you have to reapply the insurance if this was an insurance job. You have to reapply any discounts if there were any discounts applied to the original order. It does not do it for you. So that's why we have this message here. So I'm going to continue to pricing. And you may be like, well, wait a minute, how do I know? Where do I go look, to find out what did the original order look like? You have a little message over here in yellow that says click original order pricing to review discounts previously applied. So I'm going to scroll down, and here's your original order pricing button, where I can see what was the pricing of the original order from the screen. I don't have to go do any research to figure it out. So I can see that my new order is $409.95. So let's go look at this. And we can see from this screen, were there any discounts? Was there any insurance applied to the original job? I'm always telling everybody to look in this section here in that middle where it says discount, discount reason. If there were any discounts applied to the original order, it would tell you the discount amount and the discount reason here. Also, if there was any insurance applied to the original order, we would see the insurance details down here. And it would say IMED or VSV or whatever insurance that you had applied to the original order. Also, in your live environment, since you guys are live with the system, you can click on this transaction ID and it gives you like a breakdown of if there was an insurance applied, how was that insurance applied originally, and also will show you how the discount was applied. So if you want to see that breakdown, you can click on that transaction ID. Now I can see my original order was $879.95 because you guys probably know there's a big difference between how much it costs for a progressive, how much it costs for single vision. So I'm going to take my calculator out because I can't calculate that in my head, and I want to know what the difference is between these two orders. So the original one was $879.95, and the new one is $409.95. So that's a difference of $470. And I know you guys can't answer me, but I always ask this question to offices. When you see this difference in orders, if you leave that 409.95 like that and you don't do anything, then it's going to look like you are going to give $470 back to the patient. And most offices are like, no. Some offices say yes, we'll give them some money back, but most offices is like, well, wait, no, we already paid like the lab to make those progressive lenses. So we're not gonna refund any money back to the patient, just because they're going, back to single vision or going back to aligned bifocal. So that's where that miscellaneous fee, that remake fee that I showed you that was active in administration, that's where that comes into play when you're like, yeah, I don't want to give the patient any money back. I'm going to close out of this. And then I'm just going to go up here to miscellaneous fees because I want to make up that difference. I don't want this to say 409.95. I want it to say 879.95. Because if I were to save an invoice here, I get to the next screen, the patient's going to have a credit of the 879, and then we're going to apply the credit to the 409, and that patient would have a $470 credit. So if you don't want that to happen, on the fee slip, we're going to click on miscellaneous fee. And then we're going to go down to, you could do remade order, remake fee, it's up to you how you have them named, because remember I said you can change the names of them. So whichever one you want to use, and you don't have to have both activated, you can just have one activated. So I'm just going to say remake fee. I'm going to add, it's going to add it as 0, and then I'm going to put in the difference, which was $470. I'm going to update price, and I'm going to say no, because I don't want that to save as 470, because next time it could be 100. So I'm going to say no here. And now we can see this is $879.95. That is exactly matching the price of the original order. So now when I save an invoice, you can see, and this patient already had a $100 credit on their account. That's why you're seeing $979 here. If they didn't have any type of credit on their account at all before we did this remake, this credit and its balance would match. So then you can see my customer credits already applied for me. And then I'm about to save this, but let's say that you guys need a backdate service date. Remember that is here at the bottom left where you can backdate your service date of your invoice before I save it. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to process. And then, that remake is complete. And you're going to notice here that now my original order says remade. My new order is in process. And then you have these little arrows here. That's your remake history. So anytime that a new order that was created from a remade order, that order is going to have these arrows right here. And I can click on the little caret to the left, and I could see the info here from the remake. My original order number was the 981. The order date was 10/8. Original promise date was 10/23. It was remade, and then there was no claim because this didn't have any insurance. All right, so that is a non-adapt. So next I'm going to see. I'm going to go to my Rachel Ray patient. I'm going to jump to something a little bit different. And actually, let me go to a different patient. Let's talk about a different remake. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go to my Louis Armstrong. And let's talk about if we do a remake that there's no change in pricing. Maybe I'm doing a remake because it's a warranty job. So I'm just going to go and look up my patient, go to material orders, go to the job that I want to remake, go to my actions again, and click on remake. And then this remake reason, you would choose, why are you doing a warranty job? I'm just going to say made with pitch scratch chip. I'm not doing anything in my frame this time either. I'm going to remake order. When we get to our summary page, we don't have to make any changes, right? We're not changing anything. This is going to be covered by the warranty for this patient, so we don't need to make any changes to anything here. So I'm going to scroll down, continue to pricing, and it's going to give me a different message here for this patient. It's telling me, okay, well, you didn't make any changes to pricing. You can click on OK to apply the original order's pricing. So as you see in this message, it says, okay, well, we're going to reapply everything for you. You don't have to worry about reapplying insurance if there was any. You don't have to worry about reapplying the discounts if there were any. Now, just to point this out, go to pricing is here. If you did want to charge the patient something for this remake, you can go to pricing and you can add a miscellaneous charge to charge that patient. But if you're like, no, this is covered by their warranty, I'm going to click on OK here. And then it's going to take us to the screen. It does take a moment here. I always tell offices this. It takes a moment here because what is happening is bringing everything from the original order to this new order for you. System's not broken, it's not slow, whatever be the case. I know some people are like, wait a minute, this is taking a little bit longer. It just takes a few moments, and then that screen is going to pop up, saying, do you want to process order now? All right, there it is, and I'm going to process my order now. And then it does give you some info here. It's a great thing about the system that it gives you info about, if orders are going to go electronic or not. Mine was a manual lab submission anyway, but it's not going to go anywhere. And it's cool that it gives you the lab info here. If you do need to, call the lab and let them know something, you have the original order number and the new order number here, in this one screen. So then I'm going to close this out. And same thing with like our other remake, we can see this one says remade now. There's our little arrows for the new order. So that's a remake when there's been no changes, in pricing. All right, so now I'm going to jump to another patient. So that's our remake scenario. So now I'm going to go and talk about a VSP, if you do a remake on a VSP job, or maybe if you're even returning it. I'm just going to go to a patient real quick, and I'm going to go to my Rachel Ray patient, and I'm going to go to material orders. I just wanted to talk about the VSP jobs here. So you see this job here, it says lab order submitted. So for you offices that are using the VSP the interface, when you input an order into the system and it gets picked up and sent to the lab and gets billed out to the insurance, then you're going to get an integration status here. It says lab order submitted. Hopefully you're getting that, not lab order failed. If it fails, that means something happened that we need to check out and fix. But if it says lab order submitted and then it says billed, it means everything's been completed, got sent to the lab, it got billed out, to the insurance. So everything happened through the interface. So, but what happens if I'm like, oh, well, I actually need to return this job? Or even if you had to do a remake, either way, if you do a remake with VSP orders, you have to call the lab and you would have to go do a corrected claim if anything got added. If you're doing a return of this job, just, to let you guys know this, that if you do a return, the lab is not notified, that you return the job. VSP is not notified that, that claim needs to be canceled. So you would have to make sure you call that lab to let them know, hey, do not make this order. The patient may have changed their mind. And then also you would want to either call VSP, go to ifinity.com to cancel out that claim so you guys are not, getting paid for that order, that was submitted. So just wanted to give you that information when it comes to VSP. Um, if you're doing a remake or return when it comes, to VSP orders. All right, so now I'm going to go to another patient. I'm going to go back to my Summer Sanchez, and we're going to talk about returning orders. So you definitely can return any type of job in here, whether it be an exam, contact lenses, um, eyeglass orders. You can always return something if you put it in an error or made a mistake and you're like, oh, I don't want to do a remake, I just want to return it. So I'm just going to go to that order and you can see I have a contact lens and exam order here. This is a non-insurance order for my example, but of course you may have insurance attached to it. I'm going to go to actions and I'm going to click on return. Now, when we have several items on an invoice, you see they're all listed here when we do a return. You have the ability to go here and say, okay, I just want to check off a couple of things. Maybe they're just returning the contact lenses. Or maybe I want to, return just the exam. Maybe I put it in as an error and I shouldn't have put it on this invoice. So you can check off the individual check boxes. You also have this button here, full return without exam. So if we're returning everything on this invoice except for the exam, we can do full return without exam. So then it only checks off the items that are not exam related. And because this is a private pay job, you can see I have an option to choose how many boxes I can return that I want to return here. If they only wanted to return 2 boxes, if you allow that, you can have that option. Now, just to let you know, on the other side of the coin, when insurance is applied, you do not have this option to choose how many boxes. You would have to return everything and then re-put back in what they kept. That's the way the system is designed. All right, so I'm going to say they're returning all the contacts. And then we can see at the bottom that it says return due 300 because that's the dollar amount related to that contact lens. And you can see the total was 562. So $262 that had to do with the front, with the exam, and the contact lens fit is all staying, not being returned. So I'm going to click on return. I would choose the reason, why I'm returning it. I'm just going to say customer satisfaction. And then we have the option to say, how are we giving the money back to the patient? Are we crediting it? Maybe they're returning these contacts and getting different ones. Maybe the prescription, had to be changed. And we're just returning and we're going to put the credit on the account so then we can apply that credit to the new boxes. Or you may be like, well, no, we're actually refunding the money. I can click on refund and you can see my options here. They paid with American Express originally, so I can refund the money back to their credit card. I can, write them a check if I need to. You also have the ability to partial refund here. Maybe they're going to get 2 boxes of contacts and then we only need $150. And so I want to refund 150 to them. Remember, you can do that here. So I will put the 150. I'm going to return. It does populate a receipt. But then you see the 150 credit that I did not refund back to them is there now, available for you to apply to the new order. And then when we look at our order down here, you can see it says returned and it says partial return. If I had returned everything on that job, it would say full return here. And then if I go to the actions, you still have adjust return. If I had returned everything, the option of return would not be there. That would disappear because you can't return something that's already been returned. All right, so the couple other things and we'll be wrapping it up. So I'm going to go to a patient and let's talk about patient balances for a second. So I'm going to go to my patient here. And just to show you guys, if a patient has a balance on their account, can I adjust this balance? How do I adjust that balance? If I want to adjust the whole thing off, maybe I charge them too much and I'm like, oh, I need to adjust it down a little bit. Or maybe, I want to adjust everything off. Maybe they don't owe this balance. So what I'm going to do is go to material orders. And that balance, of course, is linked here to an invoiced order whenever you see a patient balance, and you can see my 110 here on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to go to actions, and I have this adjust button right here. So I'm going to click on adjust, and then I will select the reason why I'm adjusting. I'm just going to do customer satisfaction. Then, I have that ability to adjust down, and you're adjusting down this order balance. You can see invoice price and order balance. So invoice price, you can't adjust down. You can only adjust down what is left over. When that invoice was created, how much was left over. It looks like the patient had paid 100 when this order was created, and we have 110 left over. So, if I wanted to adjust it down a little bit, maybe I overcharge them a little bit, then I can just put that amount here. If I need to get rid of the entire 110, I would plug in my 110 here. So I'm going to say I want to adjust it down by 50. And I'm going to click on adjust. It populates a receipt for that adjustment, and now you can see my balance is now 60. And up here at the upper left, you can see the $60 balance. So that's how you can easily adjust off, a balance that is linked to an invoice order by going to actions and selecting your adjust button. And then also, just to point this out while we're in here, no, we're not really talking about collections, but this is where you can actually mark things as collections here in the material order screen. If it's something sitting here and you're like, well, the patient's never picked up their order, they still have this balance, I can mark it as collections from here. I'm not going to do that on my order, but you definitely can do it from your actions drop down. All right, and then the very last thing I'm going to cover today is, and you guys may already know about this, copying orders in here. You have the ability to copy an order. So if you've patient ordered something previously and maybe, they came back in and are like, oh, I want to get another pair of glasses, or maybe they lost their glasses or they got broken or they can't find them, whatever be the case, I can always copy an order without having to start from scratch. So I'm going to go up to a different patient. I'm going to go to Ginger. I'm going to go to material orders, and I'm going to say Ginger came in and says, oh my gosh, I have lost my glasses somewhere. I can't see without them. I had to have somebody drive me here today because I can't see to drive. I need a pair of glasses. And I love the ones I had. So I pull up Ginger's order here. I mean, I could definitely click on the order number, go take a look and see, what she has so I can recreate the order. That's a lot of work, right? To go here, click on my order number and say, okay, let me look and see what she got last time. This Altair frame, BB. Okay, she had single vision polycarbonate, single vision clear. And then I go and create the order. That's, too many steps here to have to, do that. So I'm just going to go back to material orders. I'm going to go to my order and I'm going to go to actions and we have copy. So we can actually copy this entire order into a new order without having to start from scratch. So I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to tell the system, am I sending electronic or manual? If they did have any insurance benefits that you had documented, of course, you would have that option here as well. I'm going to do manual for mine. And you can see how it copied my frame and my lens. Now, it will automatically take away the lab. It will make you choose a lab. And you can see right here, your lab selection was automatically changed. Review it before finalizing your order. So I'm going to re-add my lab, but pretty cool. It brought forward my frame, brought forward my lenses without me having to recreate the order. Now, what if the patient says, hey, you know what? Kind of didn't like the clear. Can I do that polarized? My friend told me about polarized lenses and I like how, theirs are. So even though I copied this, I can jump right into my lenses. I can go here and I can choose my polarized and add it. Even though I copied it, you still have the ability to make those edits if the patient, wants something different. Same thing with the frame. So then I have my new order built. I'm going to continue to summary, review my order here, make sure everything looks good, and it does. Continue to pricing, and then, you're going to finish this order like you normally would. So I'm going to save an invoice here. And then I'm going to say they went ahead and paid everything with their MasterCard, and then I'm going to save. Now, I did want to talk about this really quickly here. So, do you want to process your order? Now, I selected manual lab submission. So no matter what I do here, it's not going to a lab. But if you have it, selected as electronic, or, it's a VSP job, it's going to automatically go electronic. When I process the order now, it is going to go to the lab if it's electronic. If I'm not ready for it to go to the lab yet, I want to put it on hold. Maybe the patient's paying for this, but they're like, can you hold off on the job? Don't send it yet because I want to go talk to my husband about this and make sure it's okay that I'm getting these. Or maybe you have a staff member in the office that is reviewing the orders before they actually get submitted. That's when I would put it on hold. So I'm going to put this one on hold just to show you what happens. Okay, so there's our patient's receipt. And then here is my job, lab on hold. Now, the reason why I put this on hold because I know a lot of times we get questions as we can't edit orders. You can't edit orders after they're processed. Once they're in process, you cannot go back in and edit the order. You either have to return it or do a remake. But if you have it lab on hold, you're going to see in the actions drop down that I have the ability to edit, or I can just release. If I'm like, well, it's good to go, I'm going to release it to lab. But if I wanted to go and change something on the order, I'm going to edit it, but it's going to give me some info here. Are you sure you want to edit this order? The original order will be voided and a new order with identical order details will be created for you to modify. So it will void out the original order, but it creates a duplicate order for you to be able to change it. So I'm going to say yes, edit order. It's going to open it back to this screen, to your summary page. So then I can go and make that change. If she was like, no, yeah, I decided I don't want to do polarized or whatever, then you can, make the change here. And then you just, continue on with the order. And then you'll just go through the whole process again. And you'll have to put, and you can see she has a credit there now. So I'm just going to use a credit. If I had changed anything on the order, then she would have a bigger credit than the balance here. So then I'm going to save, and then if I'm ready for it to go, I'm going to process order now. So that's one time that you have that ability to edit. If it is on lab on hold, then you have that ability to edit that job before it goes anywhere. And you can see how the original one was canceled and voided, and then here's my new one. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening in. Hopefully, you learned something from this content. But Linda, was there any questions?
Yes, we do have one question,
Okay,
Tina.
great.
The question is, if we have a bunch of old AR to adjust off, is there a way to adjust all of it at one time?
That is a great question, but yeah, there you would have to go to each individual patient because those balances are linked to each individual patient when it comes to front office balances.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And it looks like that is the only question that we had that came in.
Okay, great.
Okay, and then if you are looking for additional training, you can check out our other learning options such as documentation, tutorials and walkthroughs, role-based training, additional training webinars, one-on-one virtual training, and on-site training or consultations. You can learn more at ifinity.com/education. And with that, I would like to thank you, Tina, for your time and for sharing all of the great information about advanced material orders. And also thank you to everyone on the line for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. This concludes our presentation.